Just before leaving for the G7 summit in France, President William Ruto did a revolutionary thing that just warms my heart. Part of the things that I've been most passionate about in my political journey has been the compensation or financial reprieve of victims of gross violations of human rights, either by way of police brutality or excessive use of force by state agents or just political intolerance. On Monday, the president signed a deal that would direct 2 billion Kenya shillings towards the compensation of gross violations of human rights. In March, he had directed that the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights come up with a framework and a list of individuals who had been afflicted by police brutality or gross human rights violations, either from protests or elections. And the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights did so. And when they presented the report, there were various violations ranging from death to sexual violence and assault to enforced disappearances to illegal arrests. And I'm just going back. The reason I'm commending President William Ruto is he has managed to do something which his predecessors never did, specifically Uhuru and Kibaki, which is to move the conversation from debate and denial by state to acknowledgement and action. A little anecdote is the darkest period I've experienced as a Kenyan was the 2008 post-poll violence, which we knew that the bungled election was stolen by President Kibaki, which led to the violence, death, political intolerance, and internal displacement of citizens. In fact, my family was displaced from where we used to live. We used to live in Nakuru, and we were displaced. We were bounced up around, went to Eldama Ravine, went to Magadi, and then eventually to Kisumu. The government then had like a program called Rudi Nyumbani, where internally displaced persons would receive about 10,000 to 25,000 to go back to where they were. There were some cases where there was severe loss of property. Some people, specifically I think around Rift Valley area, received 400,000 in terms of compensation, but I don't quite remember clearly. But you think about that, where it was direct, like we could pin the ails that bedeviled the country at the time, specifically to President Kibaki. And you look at what President Ruto has managed to do, to confront under very difficult circumstances under a lot of political opposition, but he just bravely confronted it. And I think these are the kind of moments there are moments which determine whether a nation will heal or harden. And this is one of the moments which greatly signal a commitment towards national healing. And if we're to draw parallels to 10,000 or 25,000 that people are being given under Rudi Nyumbani to what is being proposed by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, people whose families experienced death, and first of all, my sincerest condolences, because this is sort of bittersweet because the memories come and linger. While we cannot put a price on a life, I think this is such an important step towards national healing. And I see 3 million is proposed, plus medical and funeral expenses and a public apology. The victims of enforced disappearances and abductions should receive a minimum of 2 million in psychosocial support under SHA. Victims who suffered sexual and gender-based violence are recommended to receive 4 million plus medical expenses and a public apology and psychosocial support under SHA. Victims of unlawful arrest and detention should receive a minimum of 200,000 accompanied by a public apology. Those who suffered severe physical injury, which include bullet wounds, amputations, should receive 1 million with medical expenses and psychosocial support under SHA and a public apology. I really admire how bold and how courageous President Ruto has been in. You realize that in all these proposals, yes, there's some sort of monetary reprieve, while we understand that there can be no price to a life. There's the acknowledgement, there is, beyond that financial reprieve under medical sort of cover, there is also mental and psychosocial support, which shows a sense of longevity, and most importantly, acknowledgement and a public apology from the state. No other president has managed to do this. Hats off to President William Ruto. This is a great step forward, great leap forward as a country, as we had, of course, to achieve our Singapore dream. I think we need to see more of these. These are the kind of stories that that just show and give me hope as a young Kenyan that there actually is hope. I've seen a lot of the work. I'll talk about, of course, the progressive stuff that's happening within the counties, but this particular one, which is actually very passionate, and I was passionate about, and I know also my leader, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, he also held this really dear. And as a member of ODM, who's seen the brunt, in 2017 I saw the brunt of, there was violence that was meted by the state then, where I used to live in Kisumu, and we saw body bags. And just knowing that even victims who suffered then are going to be included in this compensation schedule. In 2022 are going to be included, 2023, and even our Gen Z uprising are going to be included in this, I think signals a lot of hope. While there are politicians who are trying to make noise and reject this and try to use it as a propaganda item, some of them who actually pretend that they were allies of Raila Amolo Odinga, despite the fact that this is what Baba believed in, I think President William Samoei Ruto has done a revolutionary thing. And I commend him for that. Thank you, Mr. President, for steering out a democracy to confront its wounds. This is a very important part in the beginning of our national healing journey.